Mr. Chair and members, that is correct. All the counties listed there, and that is one of the qualifying criteria under Minnesota statutes, Chapter 12, is you have to have been in an area designated by a federal disaster.
Okay. Senator Cohen.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Kelly, I just want to make sure that as you've discussed eligibility, that as you understand, because I think maybe members have a little bit of confusion relative to the statute, that the ability to provide assistance for non-FEMA related disaster items is permissive language, correct?
Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Chair, Senator Cohen, correct. And for the FEMA non-eligible, and I know it's a mouthful, for the stuff that FEMA won't pay for, the money, according to Chapter 12A, has to be specifically appropriated by the legislature. So if I understand your question, yes, it's permissive. It provides the authority to appropriate money for the non-eligible expenses that the local communities have incurred.
And Mr. Chairman, Mr. Kelly, obviously you know that. I just want to make sure members on the committee understand, because I think Mr. Kelly's testimony a couple of minutes ago as I came in suggested, you could have drawn the inference that the non-FEMA related items were mandatory, as is the FEMA match, but it's permissive language in the statute.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Any other? Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Cohen, I appreciate your comments. We met with Speaker Doughton and Majority Leader Bach back in January to bring them up to speed on this, and it's something that's been custom and practice of the legislature to do this since prior to 2007. And I can't speak prior to my predecessor, but for the last at least 20 years, Scott County has been very supportive in helping other disaster areas and counties recover, and this is our first time at the table, and so we're hoping that we'll have the support of this body to help us recover.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman,
Senator Cohen.
Senator Pratt, don't misunderstand me. I'm not suggesting that the legislature has not done this, but the legislative appropriation relative to the disaster fund, the language that was provided for that fund, takes into account and attempts to codify the ability to make such payments, because as you suggest, it was something done on an informal basis and prior to passage of the legislation. And this was something where there was a lot of discussion in the promulgation of legislation, since I was the author of it. And when Representative Pulaski and I had numerous meetings with, among other folks, and Mr. Kelly was a participant, Mr. Kelly's predecessor obviously spent lots of time on this. We had a lot of discussion about what's eligible, what's not eligible, how to deal with trying to bring into statute what, as you suggest, has been somewhat customary in the past, but not uniformly so. So that doesn't suggest that what you're presenting to this committee is not appropriate. To the contrary. But I just want to make sure it was more a comment directed toward what I'll suggest was Mr. Kelly's strong advocacy, at least that was my inference, for the non-FEMA related expenses, but not in any way to suggest that what's in front of us is not appropriate.
Well, I've got it, Senator, I have to thank the task force and the agencies. Once we opened up the question, we had a lot of requests come through, a lot more than what you're seeing here, and we worked very hard to vet those out and make sure that all of the projects that you see on this spreadsheet do in fact meet the 12A criteria that Mr. Kelly outlined.